Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Amobi Okugo, host of Money Talks, a new podcast from a frugal athlete in partnership with Billion or Bust Media. Money Talks explores the world of business behind professional athletes. I speak with financial advisors, business managers, marketing and PR professionals who specialize in running the business of being a pro athlete. Tune into Money Talks on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find new episodes on billionourbustmedia.com and afrugalathlete.com. Again, billionourbustmedia.com or afrugalathlete.com.
Good afternoon, good people, and welcome to the 2 Cents Podcast. I am your host, Jay Richardson. I love this show. I love doing this podcast. I promise you guys we're going to have guests on real soon. I just wanted to get some things laid down and get you guys comfortable with me first before I start inviting others into our lives. No, but I'm really excited about this podcast, where it's going. It's been another hot week in sports / politics / entertainment. And where those things meet, you will find us. So, as always, please like, subscribe, and you can find us at 2 Cent Show on IG, and you can find me at jrichardson99 on Twitter. Love to interact. Always a good time. Let's get it going. Got to start off with the NFL weekend. You know, news and notes. Just want to kind of get everybody caught up on some things. And because it's still so fresh, it was Monday night the other night. Nick Bosa, I love you. I knew I liked this kid, and yeah, he didn't get a chance to play his last year at Ohio State because of an injury, so he didn't give us much as a Buckeye in his final year. But it was like he made up for it in what he did on Monday Night Football. Rookie Nick Bosa, defensive end, top 5 pick in the draft, former Buckeye is the most important note about that. Had a heck of a game on Monday Night Football versus Baker Mayfield and the Cleveland Browns. He lit it up with quarterback pressures, batted passes, tackles for loss, sacks, calls fumbles, fumble recovery. That's the big one, and that's kind of the things that we expected out of a guy with so much talent. And we know those Bosa boys just have a knack for getting to quarterbacks. But what made Monday night special was he got to a quarterback that, man, we've all here in Ohio, especially Columbus, have been just kind of feeling, conflicted about. Because on one hand, you got Baker Mayfield, the Oklahoma Sooner, who planted the flag after, mind you, the game was over. The Sooners had just beaten Ohio State in Ohio Stadium, and he planted the OU flag right there in the center of the block O. So disrespectful. One of the most disrespectful things you can do. Now, mind you, he did it once the Buckeyes were in the locker room, so he knew he was safe. He did it just like a coward would do it, and that's what we expect out of him. That right there was more revealing of his character than anything else. So as his story continues to unfold, I will not be surprised by anything that happens to him because I know who this kid is, and that's what he did. Why we're conflicted? Because on the other hand, he's the Cleveland Browns quarterback, and I don't know if you're not from Ohio, you got to realize Ohioans love their brownies, especially Northeast Ohio. They love their brownies. My mama's from East Cleveland, loves her brownies, and it's they love Baker. And I don't have a problem with Baker personally. I don't know this kid. I just know I didn't like that move. He disrespected my boys, and he's been running his mouth all year long. And I think his biggest issue is he was drafted number 1 overall. And the irony is that as he made fun of the idea that the Giants drafted Daniel Jones so high in the first round in that GQ interview where he said, man, I was pretty shocked. You know what, Baker, it's funny you say that because we were pretty shocked when you went number 1 overall to the Cleveland Browns. And at the time we thought that's a pretty Browns thing to do, is draft the wrong guy number 1 overall. But listen, it's no less shocking to see you get drafted than it is to see Daniel Jones. You're looking at Baker Mayfield, a guy who's under 6 feet tall. Don't believe the myth that he's 6 feet tall. He's not. Small hands, not overly athletic, is not really a great runner, and is just a marginal passer right now. Came in as a rookie. Hugh Jackson basically got fired. He was playing with house money. He was inserted as the starter, had nothing to lose, and played like it, and made a few plays for a rookie. with that caveat, and everyone went crazy, right? Everyone wet themselves. Oh, my God, he's going to be the next great. Oh, he's Brett Favre. Oh, my God. Comes in this year getting destroyed. It's been all offseason claiming, that this was going to be the Browns' year like everyone else did, and people forgot that you can't have a great year until you have a great offensive line, defensive line, and quarterback, and that's been an issue. Defensive line's actually not bad. Offensive line is awful, and that was the biggest issue with the Browns the other night as they got steamrolled by the 49ers. And like I said, I just bring this up because of the Baker-Bosa deal, and yes, Bosa, on his second sack, did plant an imaginary flag right in front of Baker, and then later on in the interview afterwards talked about how he was, messing with Baker the whole game and talking to him, and I love that back and forth. That's what makes the game fun, right, man? The competitiveness, not forgetting the disrespect, and always finding a way to channel that into motivation for the game. So hats off to Nick and Baker. I've been saying it for a while. I said it on Twitter, and I added you. I'll speak up now. I don't shy away from confrontation. And I said, dude, this league is gonna humble you. You gotta learn that if you're a starting quarterback, it's okay to keep your mouth shut. It really is okay just to say, you know what, I'm going to wait for the game to play itself out, and I like our team, and yada, yada, and not to talk about other quarterbacks. I've never heard Peyton Manning. I've never heard Tom Brady. I've never heard Drew Brees do an interview and say, yeah, I can't believe so-and-so drafted this quarterback so high. That's crazy. I've never heard that kind of talk. Why? Those guys have a healthy respect for the game, and they have a healthy respect for not wanting to put a target on their back. And that's what you got to realize, you do that stuff, man, you become a target. Guys have a little bit extra in the tank when they play you, and you're going to see that motivation shine through in the amount of times you get hit and sacked and interceptions you're going to throw. And he had, 3 turnovers, and he just looked awful. Kind of like he's looked all season long, and it's not a coincidence that it's the same coming off the offseason where he kept running his mouth. So probably want to chill out with that, but that leads me to really the Browns' struggles as a team, and you can plant, the blame for that squarely on Coach Freddie Kitchens, man. Kitchens. And here's the thing, I don't even blame Kitchens. I'm not even sure I'm sure he's happy to have the head coaching job. I guess he probably wanted to be head coach, but I don't know that he wanted this job. I don't know that he even understands what he's got himself into, and I don't know that the franchise understands how poorly that looks. That you'd hire a running backs coach to be your head coach. I've never, by the way, rarely or almost never do you see in the league anyone go from running backs coach to head coach overnight. Never seen that. That kind of, fast track and promotion doesn't really happen to anybody else. But apparently Freddie Kitchens was just, so qualified, was the interim head coach after they fired Hugh Jackson. Hugh coached me out in Oakland years ago. He was a good guy. I like Hugh a lot. I think he's better served as a coordinator than a head coach, but I thought he was actually, trying. And, to fire him and then make Freddie the interim coach, that was an interesting move right there. And then, to go from that right into, we're going to make him the guy the following season. He's in over his head. He's admitted it in countless post-game pressers that he's got a lot to work on. He's got a lot to learn. He's doing his best. He's trying to figure it out, and could have cleaned up this. To his credit, he does take the credit for their struggles, but it's not even his fault. He ain't supposed to be there. Freddie, don't feel bad, bro. You was never supposed to have that job, so it's not your fault that you're doing a bad job of a job you shouldn't have. There's lots of examples of that in our country right now, so don't feel bad. Anyways, I guess we'll keep things in the AFC North. The Pittsburgh Steelers had a moment that I kind of want to discuss, and I think it's important. You guys will notice in the game, those that watched the Steelers game versus the Ravens, that Mason Rudolph got tagged pretty good there when he broke the pocket and was looking to make a play, was going to throw it, I believe, did get rid of the ball and got cracked right under the chin. Perfectly legal hit by Earl Thomas. Quarterback, if you climb that pocket and there's a blitzer and you step into that blitzer, you're going to get hit. That's just how it goes. So no one blames Earl Thomas for the hit. Earl felt awful about it. He felt awful because once he hit him, and I was watching it in real time, and I knew exactly what it was the moment it happened. Mason Rudolph's body went completely limp. He fell lifelessly to the turf. His hands, were locked. His arms were locked and shaking, which tells me he was unconscious, and the body was probably trying to find its equilibrium, and he was out. It was a scary moment in football. It's always scary when someone gets knocked out, because no one knows what that means as far as, is it a head neck injury? Is it just he's unconscious? Is it just the wind knocked out of him? What's going on? This guy's not moving. Juju took it harder than anyone. We all know Juju's dramatic, but he broke down as if he just saw, somebody fall off a building. He was on both knees crying and bawling, and the cameras just never left him. They forgot that there was actually a guy going through something, that they just kept the cameras on Juju because he's just so damn animated and emotional. But it was a crazy moment. The moment got worse for one specific reason, and I think this is what I kind of want to address. During that time, the crew that's tasked with getting the medical cart out onto the field to remove the players safely failed horribly. I don't know if it's the grounds crew or the medical crew or whatever staff that does this, but no one gassed up or charged up the cart. I'm pretty sure it's electric because it makes that zzz sound back when I played when it would come out. So I'm pretty sure it's electric, and either they just didn't charge it, pulled the plug or something. I don't know. I just know that the cart came out and it stopped. It just died, and they didn't have a backup cart, or there was no way to safely get Mason Rudolph off the field. So they just waited till he woke him up, and was like, hey, man, we got to get you off the field, and we don't have a working cart. So even though you could have an injury, even though there could be something really, really wrong with your head or neck, we're not sure. You say you're okay, but you're concussed, so you're not even, among the living right now mentally. We're going to just go ahead and pick you up and make you walk off. Don't worry, we got a couple guys you can put your arms around, and we watched uncomfortably, I might add, as a couple of the guys on the team kind of hoisted him up and walked him off the field slowly, gingerly. He was kind of walking in the wrong direction. They were guiding him, and they were trying to do it quickly because everything's being filmed, and it's a bad look for the NFL. And it really, really was tough to watch, and it really, really makes us think more about player safety and about just how inept the NFL can be sometimes, and just how bad those optics were. Just draws attention to what we've been saying all along as athletes, as players, former players. The NFL should give lifetime health care to all of its athletes. It does not. A lot of people think it does. It does not. It should. It has the funds, too. It has the reserve funds, too. It has, NFL's got accounts with billions in it that they could pay for this kind of thing just with the interest, from the interest. But they choose not to. If you're a vested veteran, you get health care for up to 5 years after your last game, and then it's off, and then that's it. And that's not enough because guys are out there taking these hits. The NFL is not doing a great job of taking care of them, and the NFL doesn't let guys, take alternative methods of healing their body or recovering in the off season. So it's like, what do you want? You want these guys, to play this violent sport at 100 miles an hour, put their bodies at risk for you, but you don't want to give them health care. You don't want to let them heal on their own terms. Well, that's the NFL, and that's why you're seeing more and more guys retire early, and you're going to see more and more guys have issues when they're done playing because it is the way it is. I want to get away from that now because NBA is back. Yay, NBA is back. Everyone's excited. It's not fully back yet. It's preseason, but I'm not going to lie. I love the NBA. It's fastly becoming, I don't know. I'm not going to say it's my favorite league, but man, it's just an exciting league. There's so many cool storylines. It's a superstar-driven league, mostly because you see the players' faces, and I think that's an important factor in all of that, especially when it comes to marketing and advertising. But also because the players have more power in this league, and this league does a much better job of taking care of those players, both financially, medically, and sharing the revenue. I think it's very, very important. And their salary cap, everything's all different. And I get it. There's less guys on the team, and obviously it's not as violent of a sport, but it also doesn't bring as much money as the NFL, which means the NFL could afford to do some of the things that the NBA does if they wanted to. They just don't have to, and the players have not forced them to. Okay, it's another podcast. Back to the NBA. Zion was dunking on people in his debut. It's kind of what we expected. Still waiting to see him have a highlight where he's shooting a jump shot, but we will see. AD and LeBron already looking kind of scary, man. Just effortless out there. AD is getting so many easy buckets. I know, like I said, it's preseason, whatever. But it's just cool to see because it gives you an idea of just how things are going to look. Big story around the NBA lately, though, is a political one. And I always think these are interesting and kind of like digging into these parts of the sports week because this is where politics, sports, and people, entertainment intersect, and this one is interesting. So people got to realize what happened here, and before we talk about what happened, you got to understand the relationship between the NBA and China. Yao Ming was a big piece to the NBA's relationship with China years and years ago because he became an ambassador, and the NBA has always wanted access to China's market. Why? Because they have so many damn people, right? It's like 1 billion people in China or something. I didn't look those numbers up. I'm just guessing because if Earth only has like 8 billion, I swear at least 1/8 of them got to be just in Shanghai alone. It's just so many people, right? That equals money. It's an untapped market, and NFL hasn't been able to tap into it because they don't play football over there, but everyone loves basketball. It's a global sport, and the NBA really wants to have a big presence there. That's why you're always seeing Kobe and LeBron and KD and these guys doing these big-time appearances over in China and going on tour over there in the offseason, and NBA is paying for that. They want these guys branded over there. It helps them push product, and these are big-time consumers over there. So because that's so important, it really, really is important to understand China's politics right now and their current situation with the people. As people know, there's been a lot of protests, and the people have been protesting their government and their president, and he's a powerful dictator kind of style guy, and it's been people in the streets getting tear gassed and getting beat up, and in some instances killed in the streets, protesting and wanting democracy and yada yada yada. Well, Houston Rockets GM Daryl Morey weighed in on that and put out a tweet, and it probably wasn't the smartest thing to do. Just wasn't a good idea, right? He basically put out a tweet weighing in on, I guess, the Chinese, protest and the fight for freedom that they're doing over there. And it was an image that basically read "Fight for Freedom, Stand with Hong Kong," and that was referring to the 4-month-old protest there. And, the issues that they've had in China for a while. This was a problem because China pays attention to that, and obviously they saw that and took it as basically the NBA is attacking us or does not support us. And I don't mean the people, I mean, Chinese government and the people that run the show in China. They didn't like that. Why is a prominent NBA, member weighing in on our political situation over here? Worry about your own politics. We don't need you guys weighing in on us. And before you know it, China basically canceled some of the preseason games out there. There was supposed to be a Lakers and a Nets game. Don't think it's going to happen. They started tearing down all NBA signage. There's huge pictures of, LeBron, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving promoting the game. They were all pulled down, torn down. They don't want anything to do with that. They're upset about the idea that the NBA would even mention their political situation. And now you see everyone in the NBA backpedaling. Adam Silver's trying to put this fire out. Not even Steve Kerr will weigh in on it. He said no comment. We never hear that from Steve Kerr. The NBA has basically told all the coaches to be mum. We will not be discussing this. We're gonna hope that China understands and we can kind of patch things up behind the scenes. I don't know what that's gonna cost the NBA or how it's gonna go down, but I guarantee the owners are not happy with Daryl Morey. And it brings us to a bigger point. You got to be very mindful when you're when you're in a money position like Daryl Morey, when you're in a league that's very visible globally. You have to be very careful how you weigh in on others' issues. Do some of us agree with what he said? Should everyone fight for freedom? Absolutely, right? Isn't that the American way? Hell yeah. There's a problem. They're in China. Not everyone thinks like us. And I think, and I say us, I mean Americans. We all got to realize it's not our job to save the world, right? It's not our job to be the world police. And we sometimes want it to be our job. We sometimes make it our job. And I love know that we have free speech, but not everyone does have free speech in every country. And we all feel like everyone should have free speech, but not everyone runs their country like we run ours. Not everyone lives like we live. And we need to understand that there are pros and cons to how we live, and there are pros and cons to how others live. And some like their life, and some like ours, and those that like ours try to get here, and those that like theirs stay where they're at. And that's just fine. The real issue is, and I think the real, lesson, for Daryl Morey learned, and anyone else who's ever in a position where they, can have influence and can misuse it, is you have to understand optics, and you have to understand that it's not your job to and I hesitate to say this because I feel like it's like when we tell athletes, shut up and dribble, or just shut up and play football or whatever, and, I know most athletes hate that, and I don't like it either. However, in some scenarios, and this time is a GM, he doesn't play basketball, but, you would tell him, like, dude, you need to just shut up and GM. Right? Like, we don't need to know your political thoughts. And I get it. Like, you want to support certain things and you want to support what you feel in your heart is right. I agree. Everyone should support what they feel is right. And, Colin Kaepernick did that. And it cost him a lot. Now, you made a lot off that too. But the point is, it can go one of two ways. So if you want to voice your political opinions, you can, but it ain't going to always end how you wanted it to end. And it could start something that you aren't ready to finish. And sometimes it's just best to do your job. And sometimes it's best to be a leader and step out and take those chances. But you got to be able to weigh in and decide what is the smartest thing to do at that time. Because, especially if you haven't really weighed in or haven't really done the research to find out what's really going on and you're just retweeting an image or you're just, casually getting involved, it could end bad for you. So be careful before you support a movement or hop on anything. Understand your position, where you are in your life and what you have to sacrifice. And also, have you done your research? And I think Daryl Morey had not done his and was just retweeting an image or supporting something, and it started a fire. So let that be a teaching moment for all of us. Last but not least for today, I thought this just had to be discussed and brought up just because, it's sports. It's also, I don't want to call it political, but it involves people. It involves life. It's a real thing. A Penn State player, and a lot of you guys have heard this, but a Penn State player, and a lot of you guys have saw the actual letter. It was interesting. A lot of people thought it was really, really tough to read, and they felt like it was extremely racist and an awful letter. I don't know. I took it a different way, and maybe you guys will agree, maybe you won't. But basically, a teammate got a letter from a current Penn State player got a letter from a Penn State alum, someone who was a member of the school years and years ago. Must have been a long time ago, because in this letter, this person basically says, "Dear Jonathan," and talks about him and his wife being proud older graduates of Penn State. So these folks are ancient, and they've always loved Penn State sports. And they discussed the idea that, they played sports when they were younger, and they still played sports, or they still played into their 50s, although they're far older than that now, and they loved, competing, and they never had the desire, but, they never had the talent, but they always had the desire. And though athletes, of this day are very superior to athletes of their day, they miss the days of, quote, clean-cut young men and women. They just missed those days of the clean-cut young kids. And he watched one of their games against Idaho and noticed that this kid had, and I quote, awful hair. And he put, "Surely there must be mirrors in the locker rooms. Don't you have parents or a girlfriend who have told you that shoulder-length dreadlocks look disgusting and are certainly, not even maybe, certainly not attractive?" They went on to congratulate him, however, on his game against Pitt, but that he needed to remember that he represents all the Penn Staters, not just the kids playing at Penn State now, but he represents the kids who played in the 50s and the 40s and however long ago that they were this awful and racist. And he would welcome a reappearance of dress codes for athletes. I don't know why dress codes would matter. If it's a hair thing he has a problem with, but apparently hair has something to do with how you dress. And he says this kid will certainly be playing on Sundays, but they have stopped watching the NFL because of the disgusting tattoos and bad hair and antics in the end zone. They're purists, apparently, and all they want is for everyone, I guess, to have a bald fade, no tattoos, and I'm sure piercings would probably give them a heart attack. So they got to understand how this looks, because people took this one way, and I did at first too. I was like, oh man, these dudes are racist as hell. They from that era where every kid on the field was white and had, a buzz cut and, just liked football and competed at the same level. And, I don't know. I guess they that's what I was thinking that they were thinking. And maybe they were. You could also think maybe they're just like, look, maybe we just don't like dreads. Maybe we just don't like tattoos. We like young kids to look like young kids or whatever. I don't know. Either way, I just don't think they understood just how disrespectful this letter was. And if they did and they intended it for it to be, well, then that just shows you that there's still a huge, huge demographic in this country of people that still think like this. People like this guy, I would have to assume, are some of the folks that boosted the current administration to get into power. And I don't have an issue with the current administration one way or the other, to be honest with you, because I feel like the people that need to be served in this country have never really been served, no matter what administration has taken power. But I gotta say, this one really leads me to believe that. And when you read it and you read the tone, it reminds you that people like this aren't just gonna die off. Like they're teaching their kids to think the same way they think. So certain trends are just gonna stay in this country, and certain thought processes and mindsets are just gonna stay in this country. And people have to be aware of it. People have to, I'm kind of glad he posted this letter, because I think sometimes when athletes say things like, man, we get these crazy letters, because I've gotten letters like this back when I was a player at Ohio State and in the NFL. A lot of folks are like, nah, that's not real. Or maybe that's just somebody messing around or whatever. No, this is a real thing. This happens. And I think it's ridiculous and all that, but it really speaks to, I guess, what's happening in this country. And, to me, this also ties in with the same reasons why there's a lot of folks out there that don't want to see these kids get paid, because they look at them, with these dreads and this disgusting tattoos. He was one step away from just calling him a thug, right? I mean, that's what he wanted to say, and they feel like these thugs shouldn't be getting paid. They still don't see these kids as their kids, and I think that's the problem. When I say they, I mean, there's a lot of folks that when they see kids with dreadlocks and tattoos, they forget that's still an 18, 19-year-old kid, no different than your 18 and 19-year-old kid. Just because he has a different hairstyle and someone's put some ink on him doesn't make him not someone's kid. That's a cultural difference. That's maybe the culture he comes from. That's what they do. Maybe he grew up, all his uncles had tattoos and dreads. He wanted the same thing. Now he's disgusting for wanting that? Of course not. But understand the thought process. Understand, athletes, that if you want to make yourself marketable one day, I'm not saying you got to cut your hair. I'm not saying you got to not get tats. All I'm saying is if you want to, appeal to multiple demographics, if you want to be someone that, can have mainstream appeal, it's no different than when you watch the big change in for hip hop heads. If you watch the big change in Gucci Mane, right? He went from Fat Gucci, who's in and out of jail selling coke, to new and reformed Gucci, who has a six-pack and now is doing Apple commercials and has a tech deal. And business is booming for him. Why? Made himself a little bit more marketable. He switched up his image. You watch how he dresses now. You watch how he takes care of his body, how he got rid of all the diamonds and got them big old fake teeth. And he's smiling all the time. And I guess my point is, he wanted to appeal to a large demographic. He wanted to be a little bit more mainstream. Kind of working out for him. Young athletes, people still feel like this. So you got to make a decision. And I'm not trying to sway a young athlete one way or the other. Just know that, this kind of look will warrant stuff like this. It ain't right. It ain't fair. I think it's messed up. I can't wait till we're at a place as a country, as a society, where no one's going to care about this kind of stuff, and they just care about you and the merits of, the whole Martin Luther King speech, right? But we're not there yet. So in the meantime, you want to get money and you want to be marketable, you got to make certain decisions that will not limit your future productivity on and off the field. And that's just how I feel. Some will disagree. I'm okay with that too. I like having discussions. The disagreements are okay. And another thing, folks, just because it's another note from sports and politics and culture. The Dallas Cowboys game, we all saw Ellen DeGeneres sitting there with George Bush, and people actually gave her, people were upset with her about that. That's insane to me. Just because someone didn't vote the way you voted, just because someone doesn't like the same things you like, don't mean you can't be friends with them. Doesn't mean you can't be cordial. Doesn't mean you can't hang out and have a drink or have a beer. You know how many guys I spend time with and have beers with and hang out with who didn't vote like I voted or have no political views that line up with mine, that I think are great guys. I think are good people. We got to get away from this whole if you don't like me or if you don't like what I like, then I can't be around you, and I don't want to. That's not how progress happens, y'all. That's not. You need dialogue. You need people. You should hang around a couple people, at least in your group, should not think like you. Otherwise, all of you guys are going to be idiots, all thinking the same thing, and then before you know it, you become idiots who share this hive mind that move around making decisions based on what the others are thinking, and no one's actually leading anything. don't be a follower, man. Like, and it's okay, to have friends who don't share your exact thoughts and views. That's how you grow. That's how you learn. But a lot of us aren't doing that. So whatever, this turned into something else. But the point is, these things have to be discussed. Otherwise, there's never going to be any progress. And we're all about progress, and we're all about enlightening folks, and we're all about ending this 2 Cents podcast because our time's up. I want to thank you guys again, and as always, like, subscribe, share, and keep the movement going. And please, love the feedback. Don't forget, it's at 2 Cents Show on IG, Jay Richardson 99 on Twitter, and on IG. Come check me out. You guys have a good day.